Well, the big call from President Zelensky here to other Western countries is for more help with air defence systems, and that is because those are the types of systems that you can put in place to effectively put up an aerial shield and try and protect your cities from these types of aerial bombardments. So we know that Germany in the past 24 hours has delivered one of its air defence systems it had promised a little bit early. That's according to German media. Also the US, we understand, is going to step up its exports of air defence systems. And to give you an idea of why that's so important, when that major bombardment happened on Monday, around 80 missiles were fired at Ukraine, effectively all at the same time by Russia, many of them hitting here in the capital, Kyiv. Now, only about 50% of them were able to be intercepted. The other 50% obviously made it through, and that is why we've seen a number of people killed and a number of injuries. So that is why President Zelensky really stepping up calls this morning for more Western support in terms of those systems, especially going into the winter when people will be very much in their city centres, staying in their homes, and would try and need to be protected as much as possible.
So, Trent, I mean, let's talk about the reasoning behind. Obviously, this has been going on for since February, as we've been reported, but this escalated invasion on Ukraine by Russia obviously comes after this bridge, and this bridge, the Kerch Strait Bridge, and Russia. Obviously, this is a very big transport area for them to use this bridge. And now, of course, this was bombed, but we still, obviously, the Russians are saying it was by the Ukrainians. What more do we know about the bombing of this bridge?
Well, the bridge was really significant for both sides. For the Russians, it was a real personal, almost psychological blow, given, as you say, it's a vital link between mainland Russia and the territory that they annexed back in 2014. Also a really important strategic bridge, because that's how a lot of the troops from the Russian side are being supplied in the south of Ukraine. And they're already struggling in that particular area of the fight. And so now we understand that, you know, with a disruption to things like fuel supplies and additional ammunition, it's going to be even harder for them to hold off against the Ukrainians. From the Ukrainians' point of view, that bridge really was a 17-kilometre symbol, if you will, of Russia's invasion of their country back in 2014 and subsequent annexation of their Crimea, their territory, still under international law. So we always knew that perhaps there would be some sort of lashing out or some reaction for that. But what Ukrainians will tell you, the Defence Ministry here, political leaders, is that a bridge that is supplying troops with military arms and fuel is a legitimate target, and to be firing 81 missiles in return at civilian areas, including universities, parks and opera theatre, that is a disproportionate response, certainly in the view of the Ukrainians. And they also say that they have got intelligence to believe that Russia was already planning a major bombardment of Ukraine using cruise missiles even before the bridge was struck. So that's certainly forming part of the conversation. But I think from the Ukrainians' perspective, they just don't really buy this argument that this is a tit for tat, if you will, a proportionate response to them trying to take out that vital link to Russian troops in the south.
Yeah, I mean, many are looking to what this has done to the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Obviously, the bombing coming a day after his 70th birthday. I mean, there's a lot of talk from Russians saying, you know, they're questioning his handling of this entire situation at the moment. And we know the kind of security that Russia does have in place, and particularly to protect something like that, but to still see things getting through there. You know, what has this done? I mean, what is the sentiment at the moment from both the Russian and the Ukrainian side moving into this new week?
Well, look, the Ukrainians are still resolute that they're not going to let this major bombardment, this major escalation in cruise missile use deter them from their core initial fight, which is to continue fighting for their freedom, to continue fighting to claim back their territory that's still being held by Russia. And certainly from a battlefield perspective, all of the independent analysis from military experts shows that the Ukrainians really do still have the wind in their sails, if you will, and are really successfully fighting and taking back territory that is being held by the Russians. We know that the Russians are struggling in certain areas to get, as I say, supplies to them. Also, just simple manpower seems to be a problem, and that's why we've seen that conscription drive in the past few weeks to try and get non-trained soldiers into the army to help. But I think more broadly, you know, the Ukrainians are just saying that this is revealing the way that Russia is targeting civilian areas that really should be off limits in a war, including, as I say, a children's playground, a school, a doctor's clinic, not the type of places that should be hit. But, you know, look, I think it is also fair to say that this is taking a psychological and physical toll somewhat. I mean, just to give you an example, tonight, the last night that's just gone, we've had 4 air raid sirens throughout the evening, one about 1 a.m, one about 3 a.m, another one at 4 a.m, and then just one before we came on air. And so that represents, you know, going up and down stairs, taking your bag with you, waiting down there until you get the all clear for the authorities. You know, I'm obviously young and can sort of handle it, but I do think of elderly people or, you know, mothers with small children going through that. It does take a toll. But, you know, in situations like this, you do look for a silver lining, if you will, and the silver lining for us this morning, I'm sure many Ukrainians, is that we did just get the all clear just as the sun was starting to rise. It's a lovely Wednesday morning here. The birds are singing, the sun is shining, and people are doing their best to go about their regular routine, even though it is, of course, a very difficult situation for them.